everyone. My name is Dragolindo, coming to you once again from the First Year Experience Podcast, and I'm here with my co-hosts that you know and love, Gerson Salinas and Nady Rodriguez. And unfortunately, Natasha Gonzalez couldn't make it today. She has some errands to run, so it's just going to be us three, and we're interviewing our fan favorite, our amazing UT Health Professional School of Medicine extraordinaire, Dr. Escalona. We've done past podcasts with her before, and it's always great to catch up with her through the troubling times of COVID-19 and just overall, like, as the year progresses and as we start to see things get better. So, Dr. Escalona, how have you been? How's your week? How are things going for you so far?
Things are going much, much better. I think as far as like the vibe in the school, it's certainly gotten a lot better just because like as more people get vaccinated, we're able to do more and more in-person events. So the best thing that's happening for me right now, because I think I told you in like the past podcast, is that the School of Medicine has Harry Potter houses because I'm a Harry Potter fan. And so we're going to be awarding the house cut for the house that won this year. And so like the students are planning like to have tacos and we're going to actually see each other. And so somebody's volunteering to be a DJ. So I'm like excited just to see the students and get them all together again, because I think it was a rough year for everybody. To say
so what house are you a part of?
So my house is the House of Maimonides. And that's like, a lot of people don't know who that guy was, but when I was in medical school, there was like a really old school family physician that I followed around, and like any rotations that I could come back home and do because there was no medical school down here. I would come back home just so that I could hang out with my parents. And so his name was Dr. Rivas. And this guy like almost died on a mountain. So he's like a Hispanic guy that's from the Valley. Actually, his family has a supermarket. So people are like old like me that are from the Valley. There used to be a supermarket called M. Rivas, and that's his family. Anyway, so he was climbing a mountain and he almost died. And so he promised God that if he survived, he would become Jewish, which I know but that's because I guess Jesus was Jewish. And he's like, if you save me, I will become Jewish. So he does. And so he had this prayer of this Maimonides guy hanging on his wall. And I'm not Jewish at all, but I read the prayer and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I have ever read. And what it basically says is that when you take care of people, you're not supposed to look at whether they're your friend or your enemy, whether they're rich or poor. All you see is the human that lies before you. And so I was like, dang, that is one, it's deep. And two, it's freaking awesome. And that is the name of my house. The House of Maimonides.
That's like really, wow. That's like so
deep, right?
insightful. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say like Gryffindor or something.
It is. Technically, we're the red house. So the
color right.
is still the same. And so the other houses are Osler, and that was named after Sir William Osler, and they're blue. And then there's Blackwell. She was like the first woman physician. They're yellow. And then the last one is the House of Galen. And he was like a contemporary of like Hippocrates. And so each of the students and each of the faculty got a chance to name their house. And since they put me in charge of it, I picked Maimonides, but a lot of the people down here did not know what that was. But if you go like to New York, there's like a whole like Maimonides Medical Center. Like people up there are more aware of that. I was only aware of that guy just because of the thing that I saw on the wall. And I asked him, I was like, what's up with this? And he told me that story. And so it stuck with me. Like it's what everyone should aspire to. You're not supposed to see anything. You're just supposed to take care of people.
Wow. Do you know like how that initiation through Harry Potter, like the theme of Harry Potter started at UT Health, at the School of Medicine? Sorry.
So I wish I could say that it was like a unique thing. It's not. We're one of like 60 other medical schools in the country that have Harry Potter houses in them. And so the former dean of students, her name was Dr. Adela Valdez. It was her idea to institute that here. And like she got me for it because on my laptop I have like a snitch. The little apple on my computer wears a hat, glasses, and a lightning bolt. So she's like, you look like you like Harry Potter. I'm like, oh yeah. And she's like, you want to do this? And I'm like, sure. So, I mean, it works really, really well, like at really massive medical schools. I think it works well anywhere because my students are my students. And like, even the ones that are the prefects for the houses, like I just had one graduate. He's actually going to Harvard. So my last prefect for Maimonides, his name's Dio. I know. I was like so crazy proud. When I went to graduation, I was like jumping up and down like a lunatic. He was probably like super embarrassed, but I didn't care. I was so proud of him. And so I gave him a present. And so it's just, you work with these students and you become attached to them. And so, yeah, no, it's just, it's a beautiful thing. It really, really is, because you get to know your students really, really well. And like larger medical schools. So I went to UTMB in Galveston. So I was one of 250 students. Like I had no idea who my teachers even were. No clue. And so this kind of like brings it down. So 50 students exclusively belong to my house. And the idea and the theme is the faculty that also reside within my house have this great relationship with the students. But we have great relationships with all the houses, not just yours, but you can have a predilection for the ones that are yours. But it really, cool. Really is. And so there's an annual meeting every year. And this year, because it's kind of like an international organization now, it's going to be at the Tec de Monterrey.
Oh,
I might be heading out to Monterrey, depending on what their COVID numbers look like. I might be heading out to Monterrey with some of my students. So we'll see. Yeah, it's really cool. I know. Who would have thought, right?
That's fantastic, because I feel like going into like medical school seems so scary. And like, yes, it's great to have like your dedicated like advisor that can help you academically, but like, when do you feel that sense of like community, or like where do you like get to that intimate space where you're like with other like individuals that are going in through the same thing that you're like striving for, and like how do you feel like a family? And I think that like really breaks down the huge like student body that the School of Medicine tackles, and like just gets them more socially inclined to talk to each other and like feel comfortable with one another and take classes alongside one another. So that's really cool that they're doing that. And I actually went to one of like the swearing initiation events when and it was so fun, and I like just being a spectator there, like covering it. It was like really fun. Like I could literally, I was interviewing some of the medical students afterwards, and like they were also like happy where they were headed, what house they were chosen into, and they all knew already like what exactly the history of their house was, even though they didn't know beforehand. They just like studied all four. So it's really great that that you're like, I guess, being a part of it, and like, you know, you run your own house, and that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun.
And I think I just wanted to, so you say last year was, you know, tough on everyone. And we definitely felt that from the orientation team as well. Like students even now are asking questions like, you know, masks aren't going to be mandatory coming this fall. We're kind of worried. Like I have grandparents, but my classes are only in person. Like, should I be worried still about COVID? Should it still be something on my radar, even though like things are seeming to look a lot better and a lot brighter for us? Like, should that still be something that we should be very careful with? And from a very experienced medical professional view, where do you see the like severity of it right now?
So I definitely see the silver lining, and that things are absolutely getting better. And like here in the Valley, we're really, really lucky that most of the population isn't vaccine hesitant. And I'm sure you've heard from my previous podcasts, my enemy number one in this life are anti-vaxxers. I love vaccines. And I keep saying it, they're medicine's coolest magic trick, truly. But the thing is that like in other parts of the country, you know, there are people that are afraid and they have questions. And I mean, for something that got like emergency FDA authorization, right? Most people would have questions, and I think it's completely normal to have questions. But then like on our side, as you know, doctors and scientists, as you know, Jerry, I was part of the clinical trial, right? Because I saw a lot of what COVID did, and it was really scary. So, you know, I wanted to make sure that my parents were protected, and that, you know, when I came home, I didn't have to worry about hurting anybody. So I would say if if you are comfortable with getting the vaccine, to definitely get the vaccine before you come on campus. And we can't make it mandatory for everybody, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, why don't you just make it mandatory? You can't make things mandatory that are under emergency FDA authorization, right? Because it's an emergency authorization. It isn't something that's like been around for a long, long time. Although the science behind the vaccine has been, the vaccine really hasn't been around that long either. But I would highly recommend getting the vaccine. And if you had any questions or doubts, to go to Student Health. They have the vaccine now and can totally give it to you. Go to Student Health and talk to the medical professionals that are there if you have any questions or concerns about it at all, to talk about it. So I would say the first line of defense would be to get the vaccine. But from a personal standpoint, ask me if I wear my mask everywhere I go. I still do. And so the reason why is, even the vaccine, that I was in the trial of it was tested against the first variation of the COVID-19 virus. And we have all sorts of like mutations that are running around. And so right now, the one that we're most closely watching is the Delta variant. And that's the one that's causing the major outbreak that they're having in India. And so because I don't know how the vaccine that I received went with that particular variant, or if it covers, and for the most part, the preliminary data that we do have, like for example, the British variant that came out, our vaccine protects relatively well. But I mean, it's not 100%. So I'm going to keep my mask on my face. And I mean, even though they let down, and that's a personal decision, right? I just want to make sure that I've managed to stay COVID free, which in and of itself, I find miraculous because, as you know, I go to the hospital. I work with patients that have COVID. I've got my little spacesuit on when I'm checking out my patients that, have this disease. And I have been COVID free from the get-go. And so I really want to keep it that way. I really do. So as a personal choice, I still wear my mask indoors. I mean, as a matter of fact, I have it right here. And so it's just, I feel safer. You're like, great. It's like a security blanket. Maybe, I don't know, but I am vaccinated and I will continue to use my mask. So I think it's like sensible, to, if you know, you're going to be around like people that all have their vaccine. Like, for example, my nephew just graduated and he had a party. And so his mom was like, you don't have to, because my cousin who came from Mexico came to get the vaccine here. And so she wanted to eat outside. She didn't feel comfortable eating in the area where we were. And so like my sister-in-law was like, oh, well, everybody here is vaccinated. Man, you just can't trust anybody. I'm being serious. And so like, I'm talking to her ex-husband and he has like a 90-year-old mom with him. And she's like in a little wheelchair. And I'm like, man, that's risky. But, I'm not here to judge. That's fine. And she had her vaccine, but her son, my sister-in-law's ex-husband, did not. So you can't guarantee that everyone around you, and no matter what it is that they say, there's like fake vaccine cards on Amazon that you can buy that like the government is having to like shut down. Right. Exactly. But like, unfortunately, there's like a market for everything. And so I'm going to stay safe just because you can't, not that you can't trust anybody, but you kind of can't. So, so if you want to be safe, I would still use the precautions and still like do the hand sanitizing. And I still would. I mean, I found a really good brand of masks that makes me feel like I can breathe. And it's not like a full on N95 with like a face shield and stuff like that. It's just a simple face mask. It has like a really nice filter on it. And I feel like I can breathe. And so like, if I'm locked up here in my office, like you see me now, obviously I don't have a mask on, but if I'm going to head out to somewhere where I know there's going to be a lot of people, it's on my face. So I go to HEB or I have to run into Walgreens or whatever, I leave it on my face. You're like, dang.
No, I mean, I'm the same way.
News? I don't know. I'm a chicken.
No, I'm definitely the same way. Like I don't wear, I kind of wear my mask everywhere I can possibly, just because even when I go out to eat, like with family or friends, like I still want to feel precautious when even I'm talking to the waiter, which is a thing I don't see a lot of people do. Like they just go in, take off their mask. I'm like, why? Like take the extra mile to like, I don't know. You never know who's going to be connected to who. I even make it a point when I'm speaking to orientation people, I'm always saying like, personally, it's not about me. It's about the people that like are like that have like autoimmune diseases or like are at risk or they're old. Like it's for those people that I wear my mask because like I don't want to get them sick because I know if I were to get COVID, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I'm sure I wouldn't be as affected as someone who maybe has a pre-existing condition or has something underlying that could like really affect them with if they were to get COVID-19. So that's why I always wear my mask. And even with like our department at first year experience, like most of the, like I know the podcast team, everyone I work with on the podcast, when we do in-person podcasts, we're all vaccinated. And like we've seen each other get vaccines and stuff, you know? So like I feel comfortable when we do in-person recordings and stuff that we like are able, thankfully, to like not wear masks. But like it's still a precaution that's like on the back of our minds, and it's even a precaution that like a lot of us have when we do our in-person orientations now. Because like, you know, that's just something 100 students now, but in a couple months it's going to be more than 100 students that are going to go to an in-person orientation. And even through social distancing, like it's just something we need to be careful of. We need to set a good example for like the students by all of us wearing masks and just being precautious and responsible and taking advantage of sanitizing stations. But I forgot what I was going to say. I was just going to say, yes, it's important. I definitely do it. And if you're like a student that's going into UTRGV watching this coming fall in person, know that you know, we can't make them mandatory, but UTRGV has said countlessly that it's something that they encourage students to do. They encourage to wear masks. They encourage to like sanitize and keep social distancing all well. So
I was just really happy that Dr. Escalona brought up the variants and stuff like that, because I feel like that's a thought that's always in the back of my head, is kind of like, okay, now that we're vaccinated, right? Where do we go from here? I feel like that's always really scary to me because I'm like, yes, I'm vaccinated, but should we wear masks? Should we, like, is it okay to not? And I think that, you know, bringing up that there is different versions of the of the disease itself, you know, of like COVID-19. I think it really brings some insight back into why we should continue, because I feel like definitely over time, even with me, because my inner circle and the people around me, like closest, are vaccinated, I feel like everybody's gradually beginning to like lose their masks, or like, you know, not include them in their everyday life anymore. Like if they forget it, it's okay. Like they're kind of like, oh, it's okay, they're not required anymore and I'm vaccinated. But I think that's really important, you know, that it doesn't necessarily have like 1,000,000,000% you're never gonna get sick anymore of COVID-19. So I don't know, it's pretty scary. Yeah.
I think, like, y'all's approach, like what you're describing, is definitely the way to go. If you know that the people that you're hanging out with are vaccinated, I think it's okay to take off your mask. But if you're going into a situation where like you don't know the person that well, or like me at that party where like my sister-in-law was like, everybody here's vaccinated, and then ta-da, they're not. It's if you're even have like a doubt, just leave it on your face. It's okay. And I think being outside still safest for sure, especially with like a lot of people. But I think you guys are going about it the right way. And like with the variants, believe it or not, because I am overly cautious, I would say, I ended up calling the people that ran my clinical trial. So for those of you guys that don't know, I'm part of, I'm sorry about that. You can edit this out. Now I know you can. On my podcast too. I'm like, dang. So I'll start all over again. Because you guys know that I'm part of the clinical trial for the Moderna vaccine. I called them. This was last week because they still do safety checks, even though it's been out almost a year since I got my vaccine. So at this point, I'm like, is it running out? Is it still good? So this is another reason why I'm like super cautious, because I got it so long ago, or at least it feels like it was a long time ago. And I asked them, I'm like, so what's the deal with the boosters? Are y'all just going to start lining us up, or what is your plan? And they're like, we're still waiting to hear. I'm like, okay. So I don't, you'll be the first to know if I get a booster, because I am one of the things for the vaccine. So I'll let you guys know if they line us up for boosters. But like, I'm like, how about y'all get me a booster? But that's just, and we don't know. And so they keep having me check in and they take my blood, and I'm assuming that they're looking to see if I still have a good immune response to the vaccine, but yeah, they don't tell me anything. They just like take the blood and run away. So I don't get exactly, like, I don't get to find out, like, where are you going? What did the guy you gave that to say? Yeah, they don't tell me anything. So it's hard, but I am still waiting with bated breath to hear about the booster and whether or not, or when is an opportune time to get one. Cause yeah, it's all new. So we're trying to figure it out as we go.
That's so interesting. It's like you're in like a secret, like, test trial, like.
Yeah, but like so secret, you're oblivious to it, right? Like, I don't know what's going on. But yeah, no, but I'll let y'all know if they hit me with a booster or not. We'll see. And then I tried to get my kids enrolled. They're like on a waiting list apparently. And that's another really good thing. If they exhaust the spots, I couldn't get my sons in to get the trial vaccine, although I tried, and they were all ready and willing to get the vaccine. Cause I really do want to get them vaccinated before they go to school. Cause all of my kids are under the age of 10. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to make that happen or not. We'll see. But yeah.
So I wanted to ask, you kind of talked about exactly your experience with the trial vaccine, and that makes me think like you actually have your own podcast that you host with other UT School of Medicine, like professionals and different people, different classes of expertise. Do you want to talk about exactly what your inspiration and how you go about that would be?
Sure. So one of the things that I'm also in charge of, other than the Harry Potter houses for the medical school, is wellness. And so I want our medical students to have the best experience possible while they're here in medical school. And so we started a podcast, and like we were talking about before, the name's real creative. It's the utrgv SOM Wellness Podcast. If anybody has a better idea for a name, please email me. But basically, I want to give my students kind of like another medium in which they could incorporate tips on how to make medical school or any stressful situation better for them by listening to the podcast. And so like I have an interest in wellness, which is how I ended up becoming the director of wellness for this school. My mom is a big like wellness guru. And so she had like this vast library of like positive thinking and all this other stuff. Some of it must have rubbed off. But yeah, so I'm just really interested in it. And so I want our students to listen to it and hopefully use the tips on there to become better students and more balanced students. And so the podcast is done with our medical students. The next episode is going to be with one of our second year medical students. And the other co-host that I have, she is a counselor for UTRGV. And so it's amazing just listening to her, because I mean, even like I'm going to say that I am a student of wellness. I wouldn't call myself a master by any stretch of the imagination. I'm always learning. And so listening to her is like amazing. She's so smart. In this realm, she's just so smart. And she has like all of these like different things. It's really great. And believe it or not, we have a wonderful counseling center, which is what she's a part of. So she's over with counseling and psychological services here on campus. And it's really, really great to have her. And so she's our dedicated counselor for the School of Medicine, but she's only one person. So we also got our students an app called My SSP. And this app gives you access to a mental health counselor 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Whether you want to talk, yeah, I know. Isn't that nice? Like my ultimate goal would be that this would be available for the entire school.
Yeah.
Not
That's
just
really
for our
cool.
medical students. So I think they have it right now for like international students and for medical students, but hopefully over time it'll be available to everyone, because like at 3:00 in the morning, if you need to talk to somebody, my awesome co-host Valerie will likely not be available, but the counselors from My SSP are, and they speak like 25 languages. So if you're not even comfortable doing the counseling in English, you could do it in Spanish or whatever your preferred language is. It's really, really awesome. So I like to remind our students, because a lot of them are like, oh, you guys don't provide anything. And I'm like, man, I would have killed for something like this. Please don't forget that it's offered. So I like to remind them of that. So yeah, no, the podcast hopefully will be able to put out a couple a week during the summer. And that way they'll have like this nice little library of wellness tips to listen to throughout the year. But if you guys think of a better name, I'm all ears. Because I realize that's probably not catchy, right? It's a mouthful. So if you think of any other snazzier way to call the podcast, that would be great. And yeah, so hopefully it goes well. We'll see.
It's a very descriptive title.
Like those, like no question, right? What it could be. That's true. That's very true. I should look at it that way. Very good.
But that's, I'm thinking of like a name like Vaquero Wellness or something like that, but I feel like that's just cheesy. So I don't know. I'm thinking I'll definitely send you a couple draft names.
We can do like a little Buddha guy on a horse.
Oh, that actually would be
Cowboy
really
hat.
cool.
Exactly.
Some
Maybe
cowboy
like
boot.
the D's up or something.
Right. Exactly.
That's great to hear that you're like, so you're not only involved with like that student, like the psychological aspect of it, but you're also just, it's great to preach wellness in general. Like it's great because like I feel like we've actually interviewed some of the counselors from like the counseling center, and like a lot of them like agree, like sometimes students just feel like the world's like crumbling around them and they can't do anything, especially near like finals. And I'm sure that stress is tremendously worse when you're in the medical school. Like that's just so much like, I don't know, it's so much pressure that's placed on you. So that's great that like those specific students have that like outlet to like to take advantage of, and hopefully in the future, yeah, like you said, it gets available to everyone, because that definitely would have helped me personally a lot when I was a freshman.
Definitely. I mean, even if I was in medical school now, I would love just to talk. I mean, that would have been like great. I had a really rough first year in medical school, really rough. So I would have loved to have talked to anybody that would tell me like, hey, you're not the only one that's struggling. You know, other classmates are, you just don't see it. And so, yeah, no. And so unfortunately, medicine has like one of the highest suicide rates of like any profession, which is one of the reasons why they have these things in place. And so I want my students to like not only be in love with what they do, but also be happy that they're doing it and not feel, overwhelmed or stressed out. I mean, obviously there's instances in which that can't be prevented, but to have like the tools to be able to weather that as best as they can.
If there's any time to like really respect our medical professionals, it's times like COVID where, it was insane. Like when you were telling us, like there would be days where like it was just in and out, like people just like when the hospitals were, completely backed up. And I'm happy that we're moving away from that and that things are getting better. But I think definitely COVID has taught us a lot about the stress and pressure and just how much we rely on like the medical faculty, even at like UT Health. This is unrelated, but I went to one of the multi-specialty facilities here in Edinburgh because I actually had a like severe ear infection to the point where like I was like, I need urgent care. Like this is horrible. And everywhere I called, they were like, we don't accept that. Like you don't come, please. Like you want urgent care, that'll be in 2 weeks. And I was like, okay. So I called UT Health. And they were like, come in now. Like, that's fine. Don't worry about it. And that specialty facility on Jackson was like so amazing. Everything was like, it was like they taught me what was wrong with me. They like gave me the medicine. I was like in and out. And it was definitely like eye-opening. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so blessed and happy that like we have, UTRGV has UT Health, and we have like this array of like specialty facilities across like the valley. And I'm just like so happy that like we have that infrastructure, and it's expanding. Like there's always new specialty facilities opening. So it gets me happy that we're moving away from the gloomy times of COVID, and hopefully by this fall, we have a high vaccination rate across all of our students. We're seeing that now with utrgv offering a $100 incentive for filing your vaccine portal information on Assist. Wow. Even if you're not vaccinated or not, like as long as you just complete the portal so that utrgv knows more or less what your status is vaccine-wise, they give you $100. So I hope that just causes more students moving forward to, just get the vaccine, put your mask on, go to class. And even if you're not going in person, it's great to be vaccinated to protect those who are around you and who you care about.
Absolutely. I didn't know about that $100 thing. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was just released a couple of days ago, I think.
They also, in California, I don't know if you saw, but they did like lotto winning situations with the vaccine. Like it was like millions of dollars, like if you got the vaccine. Whoa. I was like, that's awesome.
If only Texas could do something like that.
I know, right? I'd like to come out a millionaire. That would be great. But yeah, no, I mean, anything to get people vaccinated. And like I said, if you're not comfortable or you have questions, it's completely normal to have questions. Not everybody's the same. Not anybody else is like a crazy guinea pig like me that went running. It's like, where's there a clinical trial? Inject me with whatever you want. Not everybody's going to be like that, right? So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to talk to either the people here at Student Health who are awesome. Talk to your healthcare professional.
Even I, someone who is like, yes, give me the vaccine, do whatever you want with me. I don't want COVID. Like, yes. Even the morning of my vaccine appointment, I had like cold feet. I was like scared. I was like, what if I get sick for like a couple weeks? Like, what if, I don't know, my mind is going in crazy places. And I was like, Jerry, just go get the shot. Like, you're fine. And like, I understand like if students are worried or they have a lot of questions or they heard some misinformation from a family member or on Facebook, like, we're all susceptible to that. It's headlines can scare you. So I think definitely, like you said, talking to your healthcare professional, calling Student Health, and like getting a vaccine on campus is not that hard anymore. Like the lines are not out to the streets, like when I got mine in February. So it's perfectly justified if you're worried. And really, if you can get it for free and if you can come to campus to get your vaccine, I really it's something that should definitely be considered moving into fall if you're taking in-person classes, and something that you should take advantage of overall. And I definitely want to go and maybe take some pictures of the initiation school, like the swearing in ceremony.
We're planning the sorting ceremony as we speak. Ooh. So we'll see. I know it's super. If you guys can come, y'all should come. It really is. I mean, the food is awesome because you should get like an awesome meal out of it. At least that's just my personal preference. But no, you guys should totally come. It's a good time, and the students are excited, and hopefully we'll have something special because the class that came in during 2020 they got like a virtual sorting ceremony, so there wasn't like some food involved. So we're gonna have to make that up to them. Y'all should come.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think for first year students, that's something that we would actually like to cover, just because it's like, if you're looking into coming to UTRGV, to know that we have such an accepting and open and friendly environment at our School of Medicine. It's something that we're really proud of. It's something great that students should know. So definitely, we'll keep updated on that. But
yes, sorry. I did want to just say something that happened like within this past week that I thought was really, really cool. So my friend actually got like a bit of a cold, I want to say. She had like a sore throat, and she was just like kind of congested. And I thought it was really, really smart of her that she's vaccinated. So she had kind of like left her mask a little bit like behind, and she started to use it more. And she was like, I don't think it's COVID, but whatever it is, I don't want to pass it to other people. And I was like mind blown, because for like the past year, I hadn't gotten sick. And I know a lot of other people, like basically everybody that I knew hadn't gotten sick. And I really feel like it's because we had masks and we were sanitizing all the time. And so I think regardless of whether it's COVID or not, if you do come down with a cold, a flu, anything that you might have, it would be really, really wise to wear your mask more than usual, even if you are in a social setting, even if you do go out to eat, like pick it up, like pandemic vibes. I think it was really smart. And so I just wanted to throw that out there.
That is a very smart observation. So during the pandemic, I didn't have any flu in the hospital at all. And I didn't have another virus that makes little kids sick called RSV. And unfortunately, like RSV is strictly like a fall winter thing. I'm starting to see it now, and it's because people are letting their guard down. So like my kids, one, they can't be vaccinated, as I mentioned before, which sucks, but we're going to have to keep the masks on their face. And so that's another reason why I still, like, if I see people or I'm going to be in a crowded setting, and there's like what preliminary data that they do have, that it decreases the spread of other infections or viruses. It does. And that's really nice, right? To not get sick or potentially get hospitalized from another viral infection. So a very wise observation indeed.
Thank you.
And I think masks, like, it could be seen from others like, oh, why are you trying to, I'm not sick. And it's like, no, the mask is protecting me from giving something to you. So like, it's like, please, like, let's just all have this mutual respect for each other in public and, protect each other in case we don't even have COVID, in case it's a common cold or a flu. The less sick people, the better. The less sick people, the less people having to go to the clinics or the hospitals. So that's a great observation, Nady, and something that, I've definitely seen as well with like my friends and family.
The Valley is like super smart. I went with my kids when they got out of school camping because I figured it was like outdoors. Where we went, it was in Kerrville, Texas. No one had a mask on at all, ever. As a matter of fact, we were the only ones with things. I know. I was like, what is going on? And so fun times for me, my son broke his arm while we were there. Aww. And so the only people that had masks on were the people inside the urgent care where I had to take him to get his x-rays done to show me that he broke his arm. But and so when I came back home, I was like, oh, look at everybody wearing their masks. It's so nice. It's just, it's just, not everybody's going to be like us, but that's fine. I'm just glad that here in the Valley, we're still cognizant and like caring about each other for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a whole thing we could talk about. Like the Valley specifically, I always say this, but the Valley, we are not like a lot of other places in Texas. Like we are a very, like in the real eyes of the Valley, like we are a very poor part of Texas. We don't have the same infrastructure, and we've definitely seen that with like things like the cold front just recently. I'm happy that the Valley community as a whole, we've kind of all accepted, like, no, we got to wear those masks. We got to like keep our loved ones safe. We have to do this and that. And it's great. It honestly makes me happy when I go into like, I don't know, like a Target or Walmart or like H-E-B and everyone's masked up. And the people that don't have masks on are getting ugly looks from like people like me. So like, it's great that that we just have that, I don't know, we have that. Again, we have like a very tight-knit, family-oriented vibe here in the Valley, and I'm definitely happy that we are still wearing our masks and we're still being vigilant.
That's awesome. So you give people the stink eye.
I definitely, yeah.
That's the only thing we could do with the mask. We're like, I'm going to be really expressive.
That's right. Oh my God.
I loved this conversation that we've had today, especially the whole conversation about continuing to wear your mask when you're vaccinated. I feel like it was something that I was super torn about, and I'm so happy that I got clarification from you for like understanding why we should continue to wear them, and that it's okay to feel the way that I feel about like people that don't wear masks even though we're vaccinated, because I feel like they're like, oh, well, we're vaccinated. And I'm like, wait, not yet.
Indeed. I like where you're going with that for sure.
All right. Hopefully we get to speak with you very soon, leading into the fall semester. Maybe we'll have like more confirmed numbers of, students vaccinated on campus and stuff like that, we can always talk about anything UT Health related, wellness related, and even the swearing ceremony, definitely something that's a whole podcast in its own, I'm sure. So once again, thank you so much, Dr. Escalona. Thank you, Gerson Salinas and Nady Rodriguez, for coming with me today, doing this podcast. And if you want to catch up with Dr. Escalona's own podcast, all of her links will be in the description below attached to this podcast. But once again, thank you so much, Dr. Escalona. We hope you have a fantastic day, and thanks for coming with us today.
Thank you for having me.